My name is Anthony. I work at the Zuckerberg Initiative, and I'm here today to talk about evaluating generative AI through the lens of learning science. Nice. Okay. So I want to start off with a quick story. I actually recently went surfing for the first time, and doing new things is a crazy roller coaster of emotions. And it started off where I got my board, I was feeling super cool, the wetsuit. I never wore a wetsuit before and actually got to put it on. And then all of a sudden I ended up in the water and waves are coming at me. I was kind of freaking out. I had water in my mouth and I was like, my God, this is not what I came for. But then at the end of the day, it was awesome. I'm really glad I did it. And I think the takeaway here is that doing new things can be a really daunting experience. And there's probably been a moment over the last couple of years where all of us have been that person on the shore, looking out at this AI wave that is crashing over all of us with these people having a great time and wondering like, should we be doing this? Is this actually safe? And like, maybe we should be asking a few more questions before we just jump in the water. And that takes me to actually one of the hardest questions that we have in AI right now, which is how do you know that AI is generating something good? How can you be confident that what we're putting into the classroom is actually born out of something that we know is going to be good for the kids? And this is a question that I would challenge you all over the next few days to ask somebody at the show. At the very least, you'll have a good conversation about it, and worst case, you can apologize to them afterwards. So I want to do a quick thought experiment with you guys. Imagine you're using a tool like ChatGPT, and you give it a prompt, and you give it a grade. So in this situation, we're generating a summary of space exploration for our 5th grade class. Give this response a read, and let me know, thumbs up or thumbs down, does it sound generally good to you? No? Some yeses, some strong no's. Cool. So it's actually a bit of a tricky question, because if you wanted to understand what good is, you first need to define good. Teachers are abundantly familiar with this idea. We're describing the notion of a rubric, and it's not something that we think about all the time. So if you look at this prompt again, this time take it through the lens offered on the right side. Read it and think about the vocabulary. Read it and think about what the students might be doing as they try to voice it over. And you'll find that it might change your thinking. You might notice different parts of the text start to jump out. The idea of reaching interstellar space isn't something that a 5th grader probably would be able to read naturally. So the takeaway here is that, yes, you need a rubric. That is super important, non-negotiable. But at the same time, even when you have that, analyzing text takes time, it takes effort, it takes a lot of nuance. It's hard to do these things on an individual basis, and it's even more impossible to do it at the scale required by AI. So that brings me to what our team is working on. We're building automatic evaluators that enable EdTech developers to measure the quality of their generative AI through learning science. But I want to talk about how we're doing that, because how we do it is actually kind of as important as what we're doing. So we know that it starts with the rubric. We just talked about that. But the first step for us is to actually go straight to the source. And in that situation, we're working with SAP, Student Achievement Partners. These are some people who have devoted their lives to literacy, and one of their main products is called the SCAS rubric. This is sort of the gold standard for understanding the rigor in any piece of text. So we work with them to sort of take that rubric and ask questions about what it would look like to apply this to an AI-first world. How do we update this to be a little bit more modern and meet the demands of today? The next step for us is we go to Student Achievement Partners. These are practitioners who bring learning science to life in the classroom, and they work with teachers and educators all across the country. And they take that rubric and they score hundreds and hundreds of rows of data where they're applying that rubric to LLM outputs. And that gives us a source of truth that we can work off of. When we have that, we're able to actually build the automatic evaluator. When I talk about an automatic evaluator, what I'm really saying is that this is a piece of technology that's capable of looking at a text and making the same judgments as a human expert would, but just at a far greater scale. And the idea isn't to replace them, but to augment what they have to do so they can do it in a way that is supportive of how we're working with AI. But I don't want to take this just as tech for the sake of tech. Let's put this into action, talk about what it means for teachers in the classroom. So imagine a situation where you've got a 5th grade teacher who's working to close a literacy gap for one of their kids. They've got 2 sessions planned throughout the day. One of them in the morning is about vocabulary. In the afternoon, they're going to be focusing on reading aloud. And this is where the ability to measure starts to really show up. Because educators will know, based on what you're trying to get out of the student, you're going to take different moves. You're going to look and do different things. So on vocabulary, you're going to want to dial up sort of the temperature on vocabulary. And you're going to want to focus on that over sentence structure. You don't want them getting tripped up by complicated sentences with a lot of commas, semicolons, and things like that. And at the same time, you'll want the language to be mostly conventional so the kid's comfortable. In general, good software knows what its users are trying to do and helps them to do it faster and better. And this hasn't been something that's been really capable, but hasn't been really possible in AI to date. We've been sort of approaching AI with a blunt instrument, and we haven't been able to be specific. And evaluation starts to change that conversation. So we can apply the same logic to the next use case, where the teacher is working on reading aloud with their student. And developers in this situation are able to build tools that are really right for that moment in time, where the teacher is leaning into sentence structure. Okay, cool, we'll generate something that's a little bit longer, a little bit harder to read, but the language is a bit easier, so they can build prosody as they go through it. And the upshot of all this is that when you start to measure AI, you can actually begin to manage it. When you manage it, you can improve it. And that starts to bring us to really, really much better EdTech products. So at the start of this presentation, we asked the question, how do you know if AI is generating something good? It's a hard question, but the answer actually is really simple. All you have to do is measure it. So if you're an educator in the audience, I would encourage you, keep asking this hard question and don't take a bad answer. If someone talks about anything other than measurement, that's the wrong answer. But if you're an EdTech developer and you're interested in building a better product, get in touch with us because we would really love to work with you. There's teachers who need this sort of thing, and we would like to make sure it's in their hands. So that's the end of my presentation. If this is interesting, you can scan this QR code, and we'll get in touch. Some of our team also is here, so grab one of us, and we'd love to chat. Thank you.